Hi, and welcome to Reddit Confessions. Today's story, well, it's mine. It's raw. It's recent. And honestly, I'm not even sure I've processed it all yet. But if you're still here, just listening, thank you. I guess that's more than she ever did. Let me take you to last night. It's 12:03 a.m. The apartment's dark, except for the hallway light I left on out of habit. There's a slice of half-eaten pizza congealing on the counter. My phone is on silent, face up, unread messages glowing like reminders of things I don't want to read. And I'm sitting in the living room. Still. Quiet. Watching the front door like it's about to confess something. There's a silence before betrayal that I can't quite explain. It's not the peaceful kind. It's tight. Like the air itself is holding its breath. That's what it felt like last night. You see, my wife, Odessa, told me she was going to a coworker's birthday dinner. Some guy from her marketing department. It's just drinks and apps, I won't be late, she said, curling her hair in the mirror while I sat at the edge of the bed pretending to care about a basketball game I wasn't even watching. I nodded. Didn't ask questions. Didn't want to sound controlling. That's been my thing lately, letting things go. Letting her go, really, without admitting it to myself. She left at 6:17 p.m. I remember the time exactly because the moment the door closed, the silence got heavier. Not just home alone, heavy, something's coming heavy. I didn't text her. Didn't call. But I didn't go to sleep either. Instead, I waited. Not because I was suspicious, but because my brain wouldn't let me do anything else. I scrolled Reddit. I doom-watched old cooking videos. I even tried organizing my email inbox, anything to make time move. It didn't. Hours passed. 11:24 p.m. 11:55. 12:01. And then, finally, I heard her key in the door. I didn't stand up. I didn't clear my throat. I just waited, half-shadowed by the corner lamp. The click of her heels hit the floor like tiny confessions. Her silhouette appeared in the doorway. Hair slightly messy. Jacket in one hand. Shoes in the other. And then I saw it, her face. The moment she saw me sitting there, motionless, she jumped. Not just startled, guilty. Her hand instinctively reached for the wall, like she needed support. Elijah, she breathed out, like my name tasted wrong in her mouth. I didn't speak. She dropped her shoes with a clatter. I noticed something small but wrong. Her blouse was buttoned unevenly. One side slightly higher. Like it had been put on in a rush. Her necklace was missing, and her wrist smelled like a man's cologne I didn't own. Still, I stayed quiet. I let her talk first. I thought you'd be asleep, she said. No apology. No explanation. Just that. And then I did something I didn't plan. Something completely silent, but louder than any shouting could have been. I reached to the side table. Picked up the tiny photo strip from the bar fridge, the one of us at the cabin 2 years ago. Laughing. Carefree. Still real. And I set it face down. Right in front of her. She looked at it. Then at me. Then down at herself. And finally, she knew. She knew I knew. That moment. That breath. That split second between two people who used to be everything and now stood as strangers. That's the moment everything started unraveling. The silence between us felt like it could have cracked the walls. She stood there, one hand still clutching the doorknob, like she was deciding whether to close it, or run. I didn't say anything. Not because I didn't have questions, I had hundreds, but because I knew if I opened my mouth too soon, I'd either cry or explode. And I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of either. She finally stepped forward, trying to compose herself, but I could tell her brain was spinning. Her eyes darted around the room, anywhere but me. She set her bag on the kitchen counter too gently, like breaking the silence physically would only make the guilt louder. Her body language screamed regret, but not the kind that comes from hurting someone you love, it was the kind that comes when you're caught. I should have asked, who is he? I should have demanded to know everything, where they met, how long it had been going on, whether it was just once or if she'd been slipping away a little more each night while I was home folding laundry and waiting for our soup to boil. But what I said was, "Where's your necklace?" She blinked, thrown off by the question. It was a silver pendant I gave her for our 5th anniversary, custom-made, engraved on the back with coordinates of the beach where we first said, "I love you." She wore it almost every day. Until tonight. "Oh," she said, her voice too quick. "I must have left it in the bathroom at the bar." She didn't look at me when she said it. I stood up slowly. Not to be dramatic. My back was stiff from sitting still for so long. She tensed as I walked past her, like she thought I was going to shout or accuse her. But instead, I brushed by and went to the kitchen. And then I saw it. On the edge of the counter. Almost like it had been left there on accident, or not. A bracelet. Thin, gold. Not extravagant, but delicate. Feminine. Definitely not Junie's style. And certainly not something I'd ever seen before. I picked it up. Held it between my fingers. And without turning around, I said, "You didn't wear this when you left." Behind me, I heard the sharpest inhale. The kind someone takes when their entire story is about to collapse. She didn't even try to make up a lie. I turned, slowly, and looked her straight in the eyes for the first time since she came in. "Did he give you this?" I asked, quieter than I meant to. She didn't nod. She didn't shake her head. She just stood there, lips parted, chest rising and falling like she'd run a marathon. "Elijah, she started, but her voice cracked halfway through my name. I raised a hand. "Don't." Because here's the thing, I wasn't ready to hear it. Not yet. I didn't want her rehearsed version of what happened. I didn't want her curated guilt or explanations about how, it just happened, or, we were drinking, or, I didn't mean for it to go that far. Instead, I walked to the hallway closet and pulled out a spare pillow and blanket. My hands were shaking, but I held it together long enough to toss them on the couch. "You can sleep in the bedroom tonight," I said. "Just, don't talk to me. Not right now." She didn't move. She looked like she was waiting for me to change my mind. Maybe even wanted me to yell, to make this easier by becoming the angry husband instead of the broken one. But I didn't give her that. I couldn't. I lay down on the couch, back to her, and let the silence swallow us again. An hour later, I heard the bedroom door close softly. But I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling. Counting every hairline crack like it could give me answers. And wondering, stupidly, if he held her hand before she left, or if he gave her that bracelet like it actually meant something. The next morning was the kind that pretends everything's normal. Sunlight poured through the windows like it had no idea a storm had passed through hours before. Birds were chirping like idiots. Somewhere outside, someone was mowing the lawn. And inside our apartment, everything was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that isn't peace but pressure. You know the kind. I was still on the couch, still fully clothed, my body aching in places I hadn't even known could ache from emotional damage. The pillow had slipped to the floor sometime in the early morning, but I hadn't reached for it. I didn't care. I wasn't trying to be dramatic. I just couldn't move. I couldn't bring myself to face her yet. But then the smell of coffee drifted in from the kitchen. Of course she made coffee. She always did that when she wanted to control the atmosphere. Like brewing the perfect cup could stir away tension. Like adding vanilla creamer could erase betrayal. I heard her moving gently around the kitchen, mugs clinking, the fridge opening, a cabinet shutting softly. She was trying to be quiet, like I was a sleeping bear she didn't want to wake. But I was already awake. I'd never really slept. Eventually, I got up. Slowly. My spine cracking like old floorboards. I walked toward the kitchen like a man walking toward something he used to love but no longer recognizes. And there she was, sitting at the table, sipping her coffee with both hands wrapped around the mug like it gave her protection. She looked up at me and opened her mouth to speak. "Elijah, can we talk?" There it was. The line. The cliché. I wanted to laugh, actually laugh out loud, but all I managed was a weak breath through my nose. "You want to talk now?" I asked, voice low. After coming home at 1 a.m. wearing someone else's perfume and leaving a stranger's bracelet on our counter like a calling card. She flinched. Good. At least she wasn't numb. "It wasn't," she started. "Don't lie," I cut her off. "Please. If you have any decency left, just don't." She looked down at her coffee like it could give her the words she didn't know how to form. But I could see it in her posture. She wasn't about to confess because she was sorry, she was about to confess because she got caught. There's a difference. A massive difference. "It happened one time," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "It wasn't planned. We were drinking after work, and one thing led to another." I stared at her. She waited for me to say something. I didn't. So she kept talking. "I didn't mean for it to happen, Elijah. I swear. It was stupid. It was meaningless. I don't even know what came over me. I've been feeling off. Disconnected. You've been so distant lately." And there it was. My fault. Somehow, I had emotionally fumbled our marriage so hard that it made her sleep with a guy from her job. A guy whose name I didn't even know. Maybe he drove a cooler car. Maybe he had a cleaner haircut. Maybe he just said all the things she wanted me to say when I was too busy budgeting groceries or unclogging the stupid sink. "Did you think about me at all?" I asked. My voice cracked this time, and I hated it. I hated how broken I sounded. "When you were with him? Did I even cross your mind?" She looked me dead in the eye and said nothing. And that silence? That silence did more damage than any confession ever could have. "I can't do this right now," I said, stepping back like her presence physically hurt. "I'm going for a drive." "Elijah, please," she stood up, coming around the table like she was going to grab my hand. "We can fix this. I'll do anything." "Anything?" I asked bitterly, hand already on the doorknob. "You can't undo what you did. You can't return that night like a wrong-size dress." She cried as I left. I didn't slam the door. I just shut it gently, like I was tucking something in for the last time. And then I got in the car and drove. Nowhere in particular. Just far enough that I wouldn't hear her sobbing through the walls. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. Past gas stations with flickering lights. Past closed diners and 24-hour pharmacies where the only movement was a tired cashier staring into nothing. The roads were mostly empty, and I liked it that way. The farther I got from our apartment, the more I thought maybe, just maybe, I could outrun the truth. But you can't outrun something that's sitting in the back seat of your soul. About an hour in, I pulled into an old parking lot behind a strip mall. It was the kind of place where teenagers smoked in secret and exhausted workers napped through lunch breaks. I shut off the engine and sat in the dark, staring at the steering wheel like it held answers. That's when my phone buzzed. I hesitated, already knowing who it was. Part of me wanted to throw it out the window. But instead, I picked it up. 3 messages from Junie. "Please don't shut me out. We need to talk. I still love you. Still. Not, I love you. Still. Like it was a leftover emotion. A bone she forgot to clean from the plate. I locked the screen and threw the phone on the passenger seat. But it buzzed again almost immediately. This time, it wasn't from her. It was a message from a number I didn't recognize. No name. Just the digits and a short, painful sentence. You deserved better, man. I'm sorry. I froze. Stared at the screen. Read it again. And again. And again. I felt my stomach twist in a way I didn't know it could. My hand started trembling, not because I was cold, but because the floor beneath everything I thought I understood just gave way. That message, short, anonymous, devastating, confirmed everything. Someone knew. Someone else knew. And now they were texting me like we were teammates in some cruel game I never signed up to play. I typed back, even though I didn't know why. Who is this? No reply. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. The silence was worse than the message. I sat there, heart pounding, trying to connect dots that didn't yet exist. My mind raced through every man Junie ever mentioned from work: Brad, Kyle, that quiet guy from accounting. Had she slipped once or more? Was it the kind of mistake that just happened in the back of a car? Or was it deliberate, something planned and executed while I was making her dinner and folding her laundry? I looked at the clock on the dashboard. 4:18 a.m. I hadn't cried since the night my dad died in his sleep. That night, I'd sat in the hospital parking lot and sobbed until I couldn't breathe. I told myself I'd never let anyone break me like that again. But there I was. Alone in the car. Crying like I'd lost someone. Because I had. She was still alive. Still sleeping in our bed. But I had lost her. The version of Junie I knew, trusted, believed in, she didn't exist anymore. My tears didn't even feel dramatic. They felt inevitable. Like something that had been building for months and finally broke the dam. After maybe 30 minutes of sitting in that emotional wreckage, I started the car again. I didn't drive home. I couldn't. I ended up at a hotel just outside the city. A cheap one with a flickering sign that read, "Stay longer, pay less." The irony wasn't lost on me. I checked in under my middle name, just to feel like I was someone else for the night. The room was small, smelled like bleach and sadness. I threw myself onto the bed fully clothed, shoes and all. I stared at the ceiling until the world finally shut itself off. And right before I drifted into that exhausted, painful sleep, I saw a mental image of Junie, standing at our door, holding her shoes, eyes wide with guilt. That moment played on a loop behind my eyelids. It wouldn't stop. It still hasn't. I woke up in that cheap hotel room with the kind of headache that doesn't come from alcohol or lack of sleep. It comes from grief, from overthinking, from clenching your jaw all night because your dreams keep betraying you. The curtains didn't block much light, and the sun forced its way in with a kind of disrespect that made me want to punch the window. My mouth was dry, my eyes felt swollen, and my body ached like I'd been in a fight. And in a way, I had, just not the kind you can see bruises from. For a few minutes, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling fan, listening to it rattle. I didn't know what time it was. I didn't care. I didn't want to go back home. I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to hear her explanations. But most of all, I didn't want to face the part of me that still loved her despite everything. When I finally picked up my phone, there were 3 missed calls from Junie. A couple of texts. 1 voice message. I couldn't bring myself to open any of them. But then I remembered the message from the unknown number, the one that had cracked the thin layer of numbness I was hiding under. I scrolled back to it. Still no reply. I thought about it. Thought about whether it was a prank. A sick joke. But my gut said it was real. There was a weight in that sentence that didn't feel performative. It felt personal. Real guilt. I typed again. I'm not mad. I just want to know the truth. Please. This time, the reply came fast. You should ask her about the office party. My heart practically stopped. The office party? We hadn't even had that conversation. She'd never mentioned one recently. There had been one in December. A holiday thing. Ugly sweaters, weird white elephant gifts. I remember because I had to work late and couldn't go with her. She said it was low-key anyway. That was 7 months ago. I stared at those words. Ask her about the office party. Was that the night it started? Had it really been going on that long? I felt sick. Like I'd swallowed something sharp and it was carving its way through my gut. I called her. It rang twice before she picked up. Elijah? Her voice cracked like she hadn't slept either. I need to ask you something, I said, trying to sound calm, even though I felt like I was holding myself together with duct tape. Anything, she whispered. Don't lie. I won't, she said quickly, almost too quickly. What happened at the office party in December? Silence. No breathing. No background noise. Just dead silence. Junie. Still nothing. And then, she hung up. I stared at my phone, stunned. She didn't even try to deny it. She didn't say it was a misunderstanding or that she'd explain it later. She hung up. Which, in its own twisted way, was the biggest confirmation of all. I stood up too fast. My legs were weak, and I had to catch myself on the edge of the dresser. My chest felt tight. My vision blurry. The kind of spiral that happens when the truth finally stops knocking and kicks the damn door in. I texted the number again. It was the office party, wasn't it? That's when it started. The response came a minute later. Yes. I'm sorry, man. I didn't know you. I didn't know she was married. Another minute passed before the second message arrived. My name's Carter. We only hooked up once, but I think she wanted more. That name hit me like a slap across the face. Carter. I'd heard it before. In passing. Junie had mentioned him once or twice. This guy at work who's always making people laugh. I remembered because I felt this slight pang of jealousy when she said it. I had even made a dumb joke about him being her work husband. She laughed it off. That laughter echoed in my memory like a cruel joke. I stared at his name on the screen, my thumbs hovering, but I couldn't respond. What do you say to the guy who held your wife while you were home reheating leftovers? What do you say to someone who ruined your life, and didn't even know he was doing it? I didn't blame him. I blamed her. Because she knew. She knew she had someone waiting at home. Someone who built a life around her. Someone who would have walked through fire for her. And still, she let someone else into the space we built together. I sat back on the bed, trembling, holding my head in my hands. And for the first time since everything began, I screamed. Not loud. But long. Into my palms. Into the silence. Into the mess of a life that no longer looked like mine. I don't remember the drive home. Not really. I remember the feeling, like my body was on autopilot while my brain dragged behind, still curled up on that stiff hotel mattress. The roads blurred. The radio was off. My hands gripped the steering wheel like I needed something to anchor me, or else I'd drift into some emotional abyss I wouldn't come back from. By the time I pulled into the lot behind our building, the morning haze had started burning off. It was early, maybe 9:30 or 10. My chest tightened as I parked. I sat there for a few minutes, staring at our front door like it was a crime scene. And in a way, it was. Everything behind that door felt poisoned now. Familiar objects turned foreign. Our couch, our photos, even the kitchen towels we argued over once in Target, none of it felt like it belonged to me anymore. I climbed the stairs slowly, every step echoing like it was leading me deeper into a place I didn't want to go. My key felt heavier than usual. I unlocked the door quietly, like a stranger breaking into his own life. And then I saw her. Junie was in the living room, fully dressed, sitting on the edge of the couch with her back to the door. She didn't jump when I walked in. She didn't even look surprised. It was like she'd been waiting for me, like she knew I would come back eventually, even if I didn't know it myself. What caught my eye first wasn't her. It was the suitcase. It was black, medium-sized, zipped shut and standing beside the door like a statement. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, taking in the scene. The silence stretched long enough to grow thorns. Finally, she spoke without turning around. I thought maybe you'd want space, but I also knew you'd have questions. My voice was flat. Hollow. You packed. She turned then, slowly, and looked up at me with eyes red from crying, but dry now. Numb. Like someone who had run out of tears and had started rationing her emotions. I didn't know what else to do, she said quietly. I didn't want to stay here and keep hurting you. I closed the door behind me. Walked past her. Stood near the window. Tell me the truth, I said, staring outside at nothing. Not the half-truth. Not the version you think I can handle. The real thing. Start to finish. I need to know everything. She was quiet for a long time. I thought maybe she wouldn't answer. But then, she did. It started at the holiday party, she began, confirming what I already knew but hated hearing out loud. Everyone was drinking. You had to work late, remember? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He made me laugh, she continued. He made me feel seen. I know that sounds pathetic, but it was like, I'd been feeling invisible for months, and suddenly someone was looking at me like I mattered. I bit the inside of my cheek. Hard. I wanted to scream I saw you every day, but what was the point? She had already rewritten that chapter without me in it. I didn't go there planning to cheat, she said, voice cracking. But we danced. We drank. One thing led to another. It was in his car. Classy, right? I swallowed the lump in my throat. My hands were clenched, nails digging into my palms. She wasn't done. I told myself it was a mistake. That it wouldn't happen again. But after that night, I couldn't stop thinking about him. And he kept messaging me. And when things between us got quiet, when you'd go to bed early or come home exhausted, I started answering. How many times? I asked, not turning around. Just once more. That's not the truth. She broke then. I heard it in her breath. A sharp inhale. The kind people take right before they finally break down. 3 times, she whispered. I nodded. Of course it wasn't just once. It's never just once. I turned to face her. And the bracelet? She looked away. His. I nodded again. She stood up. Took a step toward me, then stopped. Elijah. I never stopped loving you. I stared at her. At the woman I had built a life with. At the person I thought would grow old beside me. And I realized in that moment, love wasn't always enough. Not when it came wrapped in betrayal. You packed your bag, I said again, this time quieter. Where are you going? I was going to go to my sister's, she said. But I'll stay if you ask me to. I shook my head slowly. That's not a choice you offer someone you cheated on. That's a decision you should have made before stepping into his car. She sat back down, this time like the weight of it all finally crushed her. And I walked past the suitcase, brushing against it like it was the final boundary between us. Then I went to the bedroom, closed the door, and for the first time in all of this, I screamed into a pillow until my throat burned. And she never came in. Not even once. I didn't sleep that night. Not in the real sense. I lay in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling, blinking into the shadows, listening to every creak of the walls like they were whispering the secrets I still hadn't heard. Junie had stayed on the couch. I could hear her shifting under the blanket, every toss and turn a reminder that just a few nights ago, we were still sharing the same bed, the same air, the same fragile idea of a future. But now, something was broken. Not just trust, but belief. I didn't believe in us anymore. And that was the most terrifying part. Around 5 a.m., I got up and walked into the kitchen. I made coffee. Black. No cream, no sugar. It tasted bitter and acidic, but I drank it anyway, as if punishing myself. I didn't even look toward the couch. I didn't want to see her wrapped in that blanket, pretending to be small, pretending she could ever shrink herself enough to fit back into the life she shattered. I ended up in the hallway, near the little drawer in the entry table where we kept mail and receipts and other random junk. I was looking for nothing in particular, maybe a distraction, maybe something to throw away. Something to control. But as I shuffled through old bills and expired coupons, my hand brushed against something unfamiliar, thicker than paper, folded once, sealed. I pulled it out. It was an envelope. Cream-colored. No address. No stamp. Just a name, scribbled in black ink across the front. Carter. My stomach dropped. I stared at it for a moment, heart pounding, hands going numb. I shouldn't have opened it. I know that. But at that point, lines like should and shouldn't had already blurred into nothing. I peeled the flap back slowly and unfolded the note. It wasn't long. It didn't need to be. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm spinning and you're the only thing that makes the world stop for a second. I know I said this was just a moment, but I don't think that's true anymore. And I'm scared. Because I still love him. But I don't feel alive with him. I just exist. With you, I feel everything. Don't hate me for this. I needed to say it somewhere, even if I never give it to you. I read it 3 times before I folded it again with trembling fingers. She never meant for him to see it. But she wrote it anyway. That was the part that gutted me. The part where she admitted, even to herself, that loving me had become routine. That I'd turned into air, something necessary, but invisible. She didn't say I was cruel. Or inattentive. Or mean. Just, not enough to feel alive with. That's worse. I stood there, holding the letter like it might catch fire in my hands, and I didn't even hear her come into the room. When I turned, she was already behind me. She saw what I was holding. Her mouth parted like she might deny it, might say it was old or a joke or that she never meant it the way it sounded. But she didn't. She just looked at me. And then, quietly, she said, "You weren't supposed to find that." I nodded, slowly, voice hollow. "But you wrote it." "Yes," she whispered. I held the paper up. "So this was never just a mistake, was it? You didn't just trip into his arms. You wanted more." She didn't speak. And I realized something in that moment. She hadn't come clean because she was sorry. She came clean because the weight of the lie had become too heavy to carry alone. "You're not leaving because of the affair," I said, quieter now. "You're leaving because you already left a long time ago. Your body just hadn't caught up to the truth." Junie's eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. Not the way she had before. These tears weren't guilt, they were goodbye. I placed the letter back on the counter. "You should go," I said. "Take your bag and go. Elijah." I stepped back. "Don't. Please. Just, don't make this harder by pretending we can patch this." She stood there for a second longer, then turned away. 15 minutes later, I heard the door close softly behind her. No slamming. No shouting. Just silence. The same silence I'd been drowning in for weeks. But this time, it felt permanent. And maybe that was okay. Maybe now, I could finally hear myself again. A week passed. At first, I thought the emptiness would devour me. The silence in the apartment wasn't just silence, it was a presence. Her absence echoed through everything. The faint smell of her shampoo in the pillows. Her favorite coffee mug that I couldn't bring myself to move. Her side of the bed, perfectly made, untouched. I let myself fall apart for the first few days. No shame in it. I cried in the shower. I stared at the ceiling at 3 a.m. I replayed conversations I should have had, things I should have noticed. But somewhere in that quiet chaos, I began to reclaim my own voice. Not the man I was with her, the quiet, apologetic version of myself, but someone new. Someone honest. Then something strange happened. On the 8th day after she left, a letter arrived in the mail. Not from her. From Carter. At first, I wasn't going to open it. I stood at the door holding it like it was a bomb. Part of me wanted to toss it straight into the trash. But something made me stop. I sat down, tore the envelope open, and read. Elijah. I don't expect forgiveness, and I won't pretend this message makes anything better. But I wanted you to know. I told her to go back to you. I told her she was confused, that it wasn't real. She didn't believe me, but I meant it. You were her home. Some of us only get to be the mistake that helps someone else see the value of what they already had. I was that mistake. I hope you find peace. You deserve someone who doesn't need to be reminded. I read it twice. Then a third time. And weirdly, I smiled. Not because it fixed anything. But because it confirmed what I'd started to realize on my own, her choices were never about me. Her restlessness, her disconnection, her selfishness, they weren't reflections of my inadequacy. They were cracks in her that no one else could fill. Not even someone like Carter, who represented everything I wasn't. That night, I did something I hadn't done in months. I went for a walk. Not to clear my head. Not to escape. But to begin something. I walked past the park where we used to sit in the summers. Past the bookstore I'd been meaning to go back to. Past the bakery that still wrote my name wrong on the coffee cup, but somehow always got the order right. And I realized, I was still here. Still breathing. Still capable of starting again. Junie's betrayal didn't end me. It shook me, yes. But it also woke me up. Sometimes, we don't get to choose the moment we lose someone. But we do get to choose the moment we come back to ourselves. Thank you for watching this journey unfold on Reddit Confessions. If this story hit home, we'd love to hear from you. What moment in Elijah's story impacted you the most? Have you ever discovered a hidden truth that completely changed your path? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might just help someone else find peace too. And don't forget, subscribe to Reddit Confessions for more real, raw, and powerful stories every week.